Greetings once again with the Oral History Microphone. I'm Ray Mofield, and we're visiting in the home of Lillie Brown on what used to be the old Glade Road, now known as the Hunter Road. And, of course, that's right here in Marshall County. It's a little bit south of Benton and north of Arden, I suppose we could say. And not too terribly far from South Marshall School. You have a beautiful place here, Miss Brown.
Well, thank you very much.
And we'll ask you as we start out to give us a little information about yourself. How old are you?
I'm 83, the 24th of July.
Were you a Marshall Countian?
Yes, sir.
You've lived here much of your life.
Most of it.
Yeah, all right. And what was your father's name?
Lons Rudd.
And your mother was?
Lizzie Smith Rudd.
Lizzie Smith Rudd. All right. We have established then your father and mother. Do you remember either or both sets of grandparents?
Well, just the Rudd grandpa
Mm-hmm.
is all. His wife died several years ago, and I didn't remember her. And my Grandpa Smith passed away long before I remember.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, the genealogy people always like to trace as far back as they can on these things. So we, do you remember where your people came from? Did they, in pioneer days, were they out of North Carolina, Virginia, or?
Well, my great grandpa Stark was I just don't remember. Well, was from off someplace. I just can't tell you.
Mm-hmm. And there's so many Browns, too, that it'd be hard to trace them, I suppose, from your husband's side of the family.
I don't know anything about them.
All right, now, what part of the county were you born? Right about here?
Marshall County. Well, up towards Hardin a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Was there a community called Glade when you were young?
Yes, my Grandpa Rudd lived there for many years, about as long as I remember.
Mm-hmm. What school did you attend?
Walnut Grove all my life.
Mm-hmm. Walnut Grove. So that's been around for a good while.
Yes. Yeah. And Glade used to be, I thought, a swell place. I used to love to go to my grandpa's, and there was a church there, and trains stopped there, and
there was
a post office, and stores, and mills, and I just loved to go to Glade.
Now that's remarkable. I've never heard a great deal about Glade. So
well,
now
you've told us church house was there.
They had a church building. Yeah. All right. Now they had a post office also.
Way back yonder, a little something they called a post office.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, it was an official U.S. post office if it existed at all. Yes. And being on the railroad, then it would get quick mail delivery because most of the mail then came by train.
Yes, the train stopped there, picked up passengers, and people would go there and go to Paris to get married, and it always tickled everybody to go when they seen a couple come out going to Paris. They'd run out to see them.
Oh, that was entertainment, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Great. Well, fine. And there was who ran a store there?
Well, Mr. Lovett and
right, Lovett store.
Rudd.
Oscar Rudd ran a store.
Several running different stores.
Was he kin to you?
Yes, he's some kind of about second, third cousin.
Uh-huh. And I guess they had peppermint candy.
They did. One time my aunts, I had 3 old maid aunts lived there at my grandpa's, and they'd come to see me kindly often. One time he sent me some bologna sausage and candy. I was little, and I really thought that was something.
Why, of course you did. Living back out in the rural areas, as many of us did, including myself, we were very happy to get a gift of that kind.
I know it. My daddy died when I was 13 months old, and they all petted me all around. And when I see them coming, I expected something in a paper sack.
All right. Do you happen to remember any of the school teachers that you had?
Yes. Dalton Cross, Garfield Colt, Naaman Dew.
Well, I've known all 3 of those so far.
And let's see,
Well, you...
Dan Drafton, one of my favorite teachers,
Uh-huh. Dan.
still living.
That's right. I believe I interviewed him one time on this program.
He was a good teacher.
Well, fine. What did you like most about school at Walnut Grove?
You mean books?
Yeah, do you like to spell or?
I was a good speller, not bragging, but I enjoyed spelling and I enjoyed arithmetic. And my reading, I never paid much attention to it because I got it through the other books and it didn't worry me. And I liked what then they called health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That may be the reason my daughter wanted to make a nurse. Because I liked it. It's one of my favorite subjects.
Was the discipline pretty strict at the school back in those days?
Sometimes it was. Sometimes it wasn't.
I guess the building probably was typical. White frame with a pot-bellied stove.
Yes, yes. And a big lot of wood around it. The schoolhouse was built up high on, we called it post, so the hogs could go under there in the wintertime. And they'd get under there and fight and squeal, and we kids, we got a big kick out of that.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've heard a lot of stories about school, and I went to several one-room schools and graduated from one, Stone, over in Callaway, but I don't remember hearing a story about the pigs fighting under there.
They did. We couldn't hardly eat our dinner because we'd go out and eat on the ground. They wouldn't let us eat in the house on the benches, so we'd go out and eat on the ground. And we had to fight the hogs away or they'd get our dinner.
Well, I can see that, and some of them were probably rather vicious.
They were. It was dangerous.
Uh-huh.
But our teacher would go off down to a house close to eat his dinner and leave us kids alone, which the parents didn't like very well.
Well, I would guess not. I don't know that I ever heard of anything like that. Generally,
that's true.
they stuck around pretty close. Well, what kind of games did you play back at school that you remember that you liked?
Roof over the river and Granny Grunt.
Granny Grunt.
Yeah.
I've heard of that. Do you remember anything about it?
Well, you'd take a broom and get out on the floor and stomp it up and down, and somebody'd grunt to it, and if you guessed the grunt, why, they had to be the next person, or something similar to that. I don't know if that's just right or not.
Uh-huh. You guessed who did the grunting. You had to recognize their voice, in effect. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's pretty good training for a game, wasn't it? Now, someone said to me the other night that they played One-Eyed Cat. Did you ever hear of that?
No, I don't.
Well, I'm a little bit puzzled over One-Eyed Cat myself.
No, I never heard of it.
Now, I do remember Andy Over.
Yeah.
And I remember...
Roof over the river?
Yeah, Wolf Over the River.
Wolf over the river.
And why did we say sheep meat and no liver, or something?
I don't know.
At least it seems that I can remember yelling out something like that. Now, a lot of times on Friday they'd have a spelling bee.
Yes, I enjoy that very much. I like to turn them down, they call it, spell a word is missed.
And you just kept going
Kept
until
going around,
if you spell more and it lasted long enough, you could go from the end all the way up
all the way around. Yeah.
up to the head.
Back then they had no stock law. Stock were all out, all kinds, and it was kind of scary and dangerous going to school. But we went.
You'd run the bulls just ran loose, maybe?
Everything, hogs, sheep, cows, everything run loose. We'd see a bunch of them, and we'd get scared, and we'd go way around to get away from them. And sometimes they'd get the talk out there's something dangerous in the woods, we'd just scared to death.
Yeah, sometimes they'd tell stories about panthers or catamounts, they'd call them, and so forth. Well, did you ever get a whipping at school?
Not really. I got bawling out, kind of. Not really a whipping.
Well, you finished school at Walnut Grove, and you said your father died when you were fairly young. Did
13 months old.
uh-huh. And your mother raised you on the farm.
Yeah, she come back here. Her mother lived here at that time, and her brother and a sister. And she brought me and come back here. And she stayed here then till she died. She never married anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, I grew up here. And this is home to me for, might say, all of my life.
Well, tell me how you met your husband.
Well, I was going to school, and we had some plays over there, and I was in them. And, of course, young folks they come, and we just met.
Mm-hmm. So he was from this general area.
Up about Liberty.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I see a sign up the road here. It says something about Liberty School Road. Do you remember a Liberty School?
Oh, yes. I've been there quite a bit, just on visits. Mm-hmm. And this was a dividing line of going to Walnut Grove and going to Liberty. Now, family lived on the other side of this road over here that goes on down, and they went to Liberty, and I went to Walnut Grove.
Oh, so you were right on the border in the districts there.
That's right. Walked, all kinds of weather.
At one time, there was a Liberty Church. I guess it was close to Liberty School.
Yes, I guess so.
All right, so you met your husband and you set up housekeeping. What did you start farming or?
Well, we first went to Detroit, and he got sick, and the doctors told him he could better come back to a farm, that he'd never be able to work at public work every day. There'd be days he couldn't go. So we come back to the farm, bought this farm over here, and moved over there, and we stayed there till my mother had a stroke, and then we moved back in the house with her. And I took care of her and her brother for 18 years. Mm-hmm. She was bedfast most of the time.
Did you work out in the fields?
Yes, I did. I worked out in the field all my life. I could do it back then when it was gooseneck hoe and horses for power. I could have done most any kind of farming that they done, but now I couldn't do anything. Machinery, I couldn't do nothing.
Well, I'd be in the same situation. Back when I was helping Dad, he had an A Harrow. I remember that. He had a disc pulled by horses. He had
one.
J.I. Case riding cultivator, and I thought that was pretty modern stuff. You could set those discs in or out, whether they would either bar out the corn or throw up a ridge. And he had a one-row Campbell corn drill. I remember that.
We had one of them still there.
We had a True Blue double shovel.
Yeah.
And a Brindley Hardy Rastus.
Yes, we had.
Oh, that's the greatest plow I ever saw.
Yes,
It had three little shovels and a fender on it. You could just hoe tobacco with it.
That's right. That's right.
Garden crops and so forth.
I've got all them plows and things down there in the stable now. I just hated to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia Morgan wanted to buy them so bad. She said Hatler got rid of theirs and she just wanted them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people want them, but I look for somebody to get them.
Well, now let's see. Do you have a tobacco peg?
Yes, in the smokehouse.
Now, I never loved those things too much.
They made blisters.
That's right. They blistered your hand. But, well, I guess you did a lot of, growing big gardens.
Yes.
Canning.
Yes.
Green beans.
Drying and all kinds of stuff.
And you dried. One of the things you dried was apples, wasn't it?
Yes, yes. Peaches.
Mm-hmm.
Dried peaches makes the finest pies you ever eat.
Oh, I love those pies.
My husband did too. He liked peach pies best.
Well, I like peach or apple.
Yes, I like
one, I
both
guess.
too.
Now you took the dough and rolled that out, and you got it kind of thin, and it seemed like Mother turned that over a saucer over it.
Or plate if you wanted a little pie, saucer. If you wanted a big one, turn a plate. Yeah.
And then you lapped that over.
Yeah.
About half size.
Halfway.
and took your fingers and
Yeah, or a fork.
made a
And
little
crimped it around.
crimp around the edge.
That's right.
Baked it. Boy, that's pretty good stuff, wasn't it?
It sure was.
Put a little cow butter in there.
That's right. Sugar.
Oh, that was mighty good. Did you ever make a sweet potato pie?
Oh, lots of them. You used to make them in a dishpan for backer cuttings.
Mm-hmm. The men would be, there'd be a lot of, of course, took a lot of manpower to,
Yeah,
and they swapped work and helped one another.
yeah, that's right.
I can remember those, and we'd talk about wheat thrashing or tobacco cutting
Yeah.
dinners.
Yeah, go to wheat thrashings and have a big dinner.
Now, you helped one another in the things that you had to
Yeah,
have a lot
That's right.
of manpower for. The
Sure
hog
did.
killings, for
Yes, we've had hog killing every year till my parents passed away, and then it was over.
example. Now, those dinners, it seems to me, might have been a little easier on the ladies because it wasn't as hot. I used to think
No.
about,
But sometimes you nearly freeze to death.
well, yeah, but you did have a big fire to can the sausage and
Yeah,
tenderloin and ribs and
that's right.
backbone. Did you ever can that?
Yes, I kind of went through with it all.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you remember anything about the, say, what your grocery bill was for a week? I know you
No.
probably raised about everything.
We did. We raised my uncle to say raise all you can to eat, and then what little money you get, you can have it to buy something with. So that's what we done. And if we didn't have a big hill of potatoes of both kinds for winter, we didn't. We just thought we wouldn't get through the winter.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any fruit trees?
Yes, there's fruit trees by every stump and in every fence corner. Rail fences were plentiful then. That was, had to keep the yard fenced way back before stock law played out, and
Mm-hmm.
keep the cows and everything around the house.
Mm-hmm.
We'd get up of a morning, and the old cows would get up. They'd come up and lay down out there in front of a night. They all had bells on them. Nearly every neighbor knew his cowbell. Hear them out everywhere calling their cows. When they'd hear their bell ring, they knew where their cows at.
Now, you mean each bell had a slightly different tone?
Just about all of them
Mhm.
did. Some of them was very keen. Some of them was dumb sounding.
Mm-hmm. A little more bassy,
Yeah.
lower
that's
pitched,
right.
and you learned your cow's bell.
That's right.
And then, so just by hearing the bell, you
Yeah.
knew whose cow was around. Well, that's an interesting angle too. Did you have a dinner bell that you rang when the bring the men in from
Yes.
the field?
Yes. Still got it.
Now those have become somewhat valuable antiques
Yeah.
today, haven't they? All right, tell us something about the trips you made. You said you went to Detroit. How did you get there?
On train.
You went on
Yeah,
the train.
Went on a train.
I guess going to Detroit then, you'd probably get on the train and go to Paducah and take the Illinois Central up to
That's right.
Louisville,
That's
I
right.
guess, and maybe Cincinnati, and from there you switched off and
Yeah. That
Took
railroad's still there, but it's discarded. But I seen it as I come home. That we went on. I told my daughter, I said, "Now there's the railroad that I rode on, about 60 years ago."
Mhm. Yeah, it made me sad when they took up that.
Yes, I
Railroad.
hated to see that and through Glade tore up, but
Mhm.
it was.
Now they saved it from Hardin to Murray, but the rest of it from there to Paducah is all gone.
Hmm.
Well, did you go to Big Singing Day at Benton every year?
Not every year till I got older, 'cause my mother wouldn't let me go.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, horses run away, and they'd have big wrecks every once in a while, and she was always afraid I'd get hurt. One little girl did get killed down there one big singing day. I believe that was a McDaniel. You remember that?
I don't remember it, but it's a reminder that, like Eddie Rickenbacker said, accidents are the price we pay for movement, I suppose, whether it's horses or cars or trains or airplanes.
It were horses then, you know, and now it's cars.
We still, of course, get an awful lot of people killed. Did you, a lot of times, I suppose you'd have a new dress for Big Singing Day.
Always tried to have something new. That was the fun of it.
Yeah. And Tater Day was been big ever since you can remember, of course. Dr. McCory keeps it revived in the 80s, and we still enjoy some of those things.
It used to be all around the courthouse, all the horses and all the potatoes, and there would be gobs of potatoes. Now you hardly see one.
Well, tell us about living on the farm, keeping warm in the winter. Did you have a fireplace?
Yes, that was all we had. And we had a big wood pile. We'd work hard in the fog, getting us up a lot of wood.
Well, now I'm going to try to get you to help me establish a story that I told at school not too long ago, and it didn't seem like anybody believed it.
No,
when my mother was living, and we had just a fireplace, and the women, not just her, but the neighbor women too, lived similarly. And there was something about that they'd sit up close to the fire, and their legs would kind of mottle during the winter.
Yeah, I used to put paper in my stockings to keep them from burning. Or spread something over.
I don't know, they looked marbleized, sort of.
Different colors.
Different coloring. And then when spring came, that would disappear.
That's right.
So you agree you've seen the same thing?
I've had that to happen to me time and again.
Yeah, well, I just didn't want them to think I was crazy as a loon.
No, you can tell them you wasn't. Just lots of things that used to be that's not anymore, but I can't get them off of my mind. I wish I could.
Do you have any quilt frames?
Well, we did, but I don't know where they're at now. We'd loaned them out, you know, and...
I started looking up at the ceiling now. Mother used to have some hooks up there.
Yeah, we did too, before we put this sheetrock stuff on.
And during the day, she and maybe sometimes neighbor women would come in and they'd quilt. And then at night, you wound up the ropes or whatever there was on each corner, and got that up high enough is out of the way.
Yeah, walking it under.
Well, I'm sure that everybody in that generation will remember similar things. What about the county government or the officials or anybody that you remember in those early days? That any of the sheriffs or the county judge? Or?
Well, just offhand, I don't remember too much. I remember George Slaughter, you know, and
now, was that the man that was involved with the courthouse?
Yeah, that's right. And they lived not too far down the holler here. There was snow on the ground that morning, and the word got out it had happened. And Uncle Jack, he got up and went down to Will Stratton's, and they took off down to Rubens. So it was pretty much of a stir-up for a few days.
Well, I had a man not too long ago that sang me a little song that he'd written about that particular event.
Well,
what did your parents do, or maybe you did? Do you have any children?
One daughter.
And she
lives in Louisville.
Does she have any children?
She has two, a 14-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy. And she's a nurse at the Highland Baptist Hospital and has been for about 20-some-odd years.
So you have two grandchildren?
That's right.
And do you stay with her part of the year?
Well, now since I've got disabled to do what I want to do, I stay the most of the time. Now I've been here about 30, little over a month this time, and she's coming after me right soon.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, we're getting a little bit short on time, but I want to save a little period here. If you have any particular stories you'd like to tell, some event that happened to you in your life, what was your most embarrassing moment, maybe?
Oh, I really don't know. Just had to think a while.
Do you have any particular funny stories that you could tell?
No, I don't know as I do. It's really, I guess life was all pretty funny back then. It was then to what it is now.
When did you get your first radio? You remember anything about that?
Well, been about 30 years, I guess. I got one before my uncle and mother passed away, but I didn't have any television then, which I wish I had because he'd really enjoyed it.
Well, you haven't had electricity all the time.
No, not too many years. About 15 years, I guess.
I know we were sort of glad to see the REA come poking its head across the field there.
Yeah.
What did you want the most?
You mean in the way of music? Or?
Well, when you got electricity. My mother always said, all I want's a refrigerator and an iron.
Well, I guess that was two important things, yeah.
Have you got a set of old sad irons that you had to heat on
I
the stove?
had 5 of them, and about a year and a half, or maybe 2 years ago, I don't remember just when, my house was looted, and they got all 5 of them irons.
Well, we're sorry to hear that story. Well, our time is gone. We've been listening again today to some stories of an earlier period in Marshall County history on our oral history program, and we've been invited into the home of Lillie Brown, now on the Hunter Road, once called the Old Glade Road. This is Ray Mofield speaking, and we return you now to our studios.